Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you level up your business game by developing a success mindset made for the long run. In this episode, how to gain 5 hours a week with 5 proven time management techniques, Neora co-founder and president Amber Olson Rourke shares specific actionable steps that will help you manage your attention, focus, and time. Listen as Amber walks you through the strategies that have changed her life and the lives of thousands of people she's coached through the years, leading to greater focus and productivity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Built to Win. Today, we're going to be covering 5 time management tips that'll get you 5 hours a week back. And I am super passionate about this topic because I learned some of these tips probably about 5-10 years ago at this point, and I've put them into practice consistently, and it's made such a difference for me on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. Now, if you didn't catch our previous episode around intentional priority planning, I would encourage you to start there because this is kind of part 2 to that. You want to start with having a clear plan for your life and every area of your life, having a clear priority of what you're trying to do. And from there, you really get into execution mode. And how you make progress towards those priorities, how you make progress towards your goals is really dependent on how you manage every day, which leads to managing every week, which leads to managing every month. So I really like to look at it as having the tools to kind of win your day, right? To get the most out of that day as possible. And so when we think about this, a lot of people use the term time management, and I think that that is still relevant, but I also like to think of it as attention management, right? Your attention, your focus, your energy, that is one of the most precious commodities that you have. And so you want to manage that really preciously because where you go, where your focus goes, right? Where your energy goes, that's where you're going to start making progress. And so managing your attention and your focus is as important, if not more, than really managing your time. And the first kind of topic I want to talk about in this is the difference between being proactive and reactive with your time, with your attention, right? In today's world, we have social media, we have phones, and this has led to a lot of people being addicted to urgency. Right? It gives you this temporary feeling of importance. Oh, somebody texted me. I need to text them right back. Oh, somebody commented on my social media post. I need to comment right back. Oh, somebody dinged me through email, there's a million ways and platforms that people can now access us. And so we get this little micro dopamine hit that we're important. Somebody wants to talk to us. And so we respond in that moment. But the catch is those responses, that reaction response that you're doing in that moment, it rarely is going to be intentionally leading you to your goals. It's rarely going to be aligned to what is the priority for what you need to win in that day. Okay. And so a lot of people struggle in this social media, cell phone, always available era to distinguish between urgent and important. And those are 2 different things. Just because somebody is proactively dinging you does not make it the most important use of your time. So this leads to a distracted mind with a lot of unnecessary interruptions, text, social media, email, you name it. Researchers estimate that between 5 and 15 unproductive hours a week come from people's attention being pulled away, being distracted by these things. 5 to 15 hours a week. If you compound that over a year, that adds up. So many times I hear time used as an excuse. I don't have the time. I don't have the time to make progress towards that goal. I don't have the time to be healthy and work out. The truth is, most people do have the time. We all have the same time. No one's sitting over there with a magical bucket of 30 hours in their day, right? We're all working with the same amount of time. So you do have the time, you don't have the focus, and that is different. So how do you create focus? Focus is a huge factor that separates average performers from peak performers, right? We think of it in the sports world, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, amazing focus. Right? We think of it in the business world, a Steve Jobs, focus. The ability to concentrate means that you are in control of where your attention goes rather being reactive to anything that comes your way. You're proactive. You're creating intentional space for you to have focus. There is nothing more important than focusing on what is going to move you closer to your goals every single day, every single week. So you can gain 5 hours a week of productive time simply by applying these methods I'm about to go over. I have seen the fruit of this in my own life. I've trained thousands of entrepreneurs who've put these into practice and seen the result as well, right? But you have to have the focus and discipline to be consistent in applying these. And these are pretty simple. They're all pretty simple. And that is where the slight edge comes in. If you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to do that and buy the book and read the book, because it's all about how these simple disciplines, these simple either errors and judgments or these simple disciplines take you down either the eventual success curve or the eventual failure curve. These are things that are easy to do. The catch is they're just as easy not to do. It's easy not to put these into practice. It's easy to be at the whim of every ping, every distraction that comes our way. That's what most people do. That's why they get left in the average bucket of performers. But if you want to really separate yourself apart, you start getting disciplined to create this focus. You start getting disciplined and using these techniques each week. So starting with tip number 1, okay? We got 5 tips. So tip number 1 is important, because if you don't do tip number 1, the rest don't really work as well. So tip number 1 is to plan the week before the week begins. You want to have a really intentional time on your calendar. You really only need like 10, 15 minutes. This doesn't have to take a lot of time. I like to do it on my Friday afternoons. Maybe for you, Sunday afternoon is better, or Friday morning. Doesn't matter. The when you do it, what matters is that you consistently do it. And so in that 10 minutes, I kind of reflect on the progress I made in this week. What areas did I, make progress towards my goals, and what is needing my focus the next week? So I start looking and thinking, okay, what are the most important things that I need to get done next week? Right? We all have the same amount of time. I look at, what's already on the calendar. We talked about that in our prior episodes. If there's important things for my kids, those are already on the calendar. Important life events, those are already on the calendar. And so I look at what would move me the furthest towards my goals if I got it accomplished next week. What is most important? What really needs my focus, right? My attention, my focus is the number one commodity that I have to use. I don't want it just going wherever everyone else wants it to go. I want it to be intentional. So I decide that, and then I put it on the calendar. I put time to do those things on my calendar. Because if you do not pre-schedule your proactive activities, you're going to eventually get pulled into spending most of your time in the reactive zone. Being in the reactive zone doesn't make you give you progress. It leaves you at the whim of what others want you to do. So you want to be in the proactive zone. There's no better way to be proactive than setting those things on your calendar. So I want you to imagine your weekly schedule as a bucket, okay? So it's this empty bucket. The week hasn't started. And you want to put those important proactive tasks as big rocks in the bucket, okay? So you have your empty bucket, and then you have these big rocks that are sitting in the bucket. Now, when the urgent reactive tasks come, because there are things that are kind of, not known, last minute, people need you, that's still going to happen. But once you have those big rocks in the bucket, those urgent reactive requests are kind of like sand that pour into the bucket around the rocks that you've already put in there. You've already established the boundaries of these rocks. And so all those things kind of filter in like sand. But think about it. It doesn't work vice versa. If you fill your bucket with sand first, it's pretty hard to now wedge in these big rocks in a bucket full of sand. And that is what most people do. They got all these things that they're just responding to, not really thinking about it. And then they're trying to find this magical open spot on their calendar. If they can just have this magical open spot that opens up on their calendar, they can finally make progress toward their goals. Let me tell you, that is never going to happen until you proactively in advance make it happen. So take your 10 minutes a week, Think about the next week. Think about what needs your focus and put it on the calendar. Get those rocks in your weekly schedule. So that is tip number 2. Or tip number 1, excuse me. Tip number 2 is to use time blocks. Time blocks are one of the most important and effective ways that you can create focus and flow. And time blocks is where you group similar activities together. So let me give you an example. Maybe you're, trying to build a business and you have lots of different roles. You're the social media content creator. You're also the accountant. You're also, all of these different things. So what a lot of people do is they're just kind of loosey-goosey with what they're trying to do in that moment. They're like, I have an hour to work on my business. Okay. And in that hour, I'm going to try and create some social media content, which is using one part of my brain. And then I'm going to switch to balancing the books, which is a completely different part of my brain. And when you're doing what they call task switching, your brain can't really keep up. It's never in a state of flow. I want you to think back to a time where you really felt in flow, like you just felt inspired, things were coming easy to you. And I would bet that you were really immersed in that thing. Now, on a day-to-day, schedule, a lot of us don't have time to have that full immersion, but we want to get close as we can to it. So if you need to, have social media content for the week, schedule an hour in your schedule, right? And you're going to do all that social media content in one block of time. This is going to allow your creative brain to start really getting into the flow and tapping into the creativity and building upon the thought process. Okay. So this is going to get you really more effective. Break apart activities that you need to do, that group them together and put a time block on the calendar for them. Now, there's an important part of making tip 1 and 2 work, right? Tip 1 is that you're looking at your week in advance and you're putting things on the calendar where you need to personally focus and work on something. And 2 is where you're time blocking similar activities together. This only works if you keep these appointments with yourself like they're as important as anything else on your calendar, right? I see people, especially women, someone else needs something from us and it's like, oh, well, I can move that. I don't really need to do that. It's just a meeting with myself. Yes, it's a very important meeting with yourself. Honor that because by honoring that time with yourself to make progress on your goals and your dreams and your aspirations, I can guarantee you that's likely going to be serving not only you, but your family and your community better than whatever, someone else is needing from you in that moment. Okay. So really take it seriously. If I have no problem if somebody says, hey, are you free, during X next time? I look at my calendar and even if it's just a time block I've created for myself to maybe work on a project, or maybe I'm coming up with content for the podcast, I say, oh no, I'm sorry. I am booked at that time. Right? We create boundaries with our time because we're honoring that our focus is important. Tip number 3 is to turn off all notifications during these focused times. If I'm trying to create social media content, or I'm trying to come up with a marketing plan, or I'm trying to, create something, and I'm doing that, but at the same time, I'm responding to every text message that comes in. I'm responding to emails. They're dinging at me on my computer. That is going to be massively distractive for my state of flow and getting my thoughts really kind of moving. So turn off those notifications. Guess what? When you don't respond to somebody's text message or their DM or their comment on your social media for an hour, I promise you the world is not going to end. And then once you're done with that focus time, you can go check all those things and get caught back up. But again, it's breaking this addiction to urgency that we have so that we can create meaningful work. Tip 4 is to stop multitasking. This is probably one of the things that I've leaned into the hardest, and the entrepreneurs that I work with that do it have seen such a big difference in this. Again, multitasking has almost started to feel like a badge of honor. Like, who can be the best multitasker? The research is abundantly clear that multitasking is completely inefficient. There was this study that I love to reference because I think it just makes a great, clear point. They took a group of people and they had them multitask and take a test. They then took a separate group of people that were high on marijuana. They took a test. Do you want to guess who performed better? It was not the multitaskers. It creates such confusion in your brain to keep tasks switching. And it's really not efficient. It takes people more time overall. Like, say you had 3 tasks and you're trying to do all 3 tasks kind of at the same time, right? You got one spreadsheet pulled up where you're working on something, you're also, listening to a call, you're also making dinner. If you were to just do those 3 different tasks in sequential order, do one, move to the next, do one, move to the next, it would actually take you total less time than you trying to do them all together. You feel like you're getting more accomplished because we've trained ourselves to be addicted to this urgency and like overwhelmedness, but you're actually losing efficiency. It's giving you reduced brain power to each of those 3 things, right? You're not able to create that focus for any one of those things. It actually leads to chronic high stress and short-term memory loss, right? Have you ever been doing multiple things and then someone asks you a question about one of those things and you literally don't remember that conversation or you don't really remember the content? You didn't absorb it. You weren't letting your brain do the work that it's made to do. So let yourself be present at the task at hand, right? Let yourself be present to use all of your focus, your intelligence at that task, and then finish it and move to the next. They estimate that 9 to 18 hours a week are lost due to multitasking. So when you can bring all your attention, all your intelligence to whatever task you're doing, it allows you to be more productive and it also allows you to be less stressed and more present. Because I use these different methods, I really honor kind of what's ever on my calendar. So if right after this, I'm going to a mother-daughter tea with my daughter. And when I'm there, I'm going to be fully present there. That's what's on my calendar. I didn't overschedule myself to have other things going on. I'm going to turn off my notifications because that's what was already a rock on my schedule. When I'm then, moving later into the day to an important meeting that needs my focus, I'm going to be present there. I'm going to give all of my focus and attention there. And I'm not going to be in the meeting also answering a million emails and texting people because then I'm not focused, right? And the last tip, which kind of ties into all of this, is educating your environment. So this is my kind of makeshift home office space. I'm in the office some days, but today I'm at home. And so I totally get, I have 3 kids, 7, 5, and 2, right? That you're not always in the kind of the ideal space to create focus, but you can educate your environment on when you need focus. So for me, I use a simple system with my daughters. I have a door hanger and there's one side that's green and one side that's red. And so they know that if it's green, they can come right into my office, right? Not everything that I do needs to be super focused. I could just be on a meeting. I could just be, whatever. And it's fine for them to come in. When it's red, when I switch it over to the red, they know that means that they need to wait because I am trying to do something that requires a lot of focus. And so you can, that doesn't have to be your method, but I feel like feels like so many people, they just don't even ask for what they need. And then they're frustrated because people are, keep coming into their office. You can even do this in the corporate environment. We do this, at our offices in Neora and have a little sign that says, I'm focusing, please come back later. So you can educate whether it's in a corporate environment, whether it's in your home environment. And guess what? Most people are not offended by this. And again, most of the things that they want to come in and ask you, I have a large team I manage, and a lot of things that they need to come ask me are good things, but they're also things that can wait 30 minutes. So if I'm in a focused flow, they know they can come back and I'm always available to them. But then it allows us all to get the most accomplished that we can. So in summary, plan your week before the week begins. Get those rocks scheduled onto your calendar. Use time blocks to get into flow. Do activities that are similar together. Honor those appointments with yourself. Turn off your notifications during times when you're focusing. Stop multitasking, do one thing at a time, and educate your environment around you so that they know when you're needing that focus time. I truly believe that there is, God has given us this gift of our brain and our intuition, and so much knowledge, both in our conscious brain and subconscious brain. And when you can really harness that and you can create focus and flow for that to perform and not just be overtaxed, overstimulated all the time, and you can let go of that leash of urgency, that leash of constantly being available at every ping and every whim, you can absolutely make incredible progress towards your goals. You will be astounded with putting these practices into play over time, the consistent progress that you will make. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope that you pick all or some of these to put into practice. I know that they will have you being more effective with your time and feeling more fulfilled in your work.
That was Amber Olson Rourke talking about how to improve your productivity by improving your focus. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you're new to Built to Win, we invite you to go back and listen to our story from the beginning. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Now, while you're getting to know us, be sure to rate us and leave a review to let us know what you think of the show.